Talk about an electrifying entrance. Here, we witness a catastrophic bolt of lightning obliterating the battlefield, striking the center with enough force to shatter the solid stone floor into dust, while the resulting shockwave violently launches the surrounding fighters helplessly into the air, proving that this isn't just an attack, it is absolute domination. Sometimes silence screams louder than violence. Here, we see the aftermath of a brutal clash where the rain washes over a warrior whose torn clothing and bulging battle-hardened muscles tell the story of a fight that pushed him to the limit, yet his stoic posture reveals that despite the damage, he remains completely unbroken. Even a god of destruction needs a moment to breathe. As the smoke clears, he wipes the rain from his brow with a heavy sigh of relief. But don't let that view fool you. Those glowing eyes reveal that while the attack took a toll, the beast within is still very much awake. But that moment of relief was a dangerous lie. In a split second, we see his pupils constrict in pure shock as his expression shifts from exhaustion to sudden alarm, forcing him to clutch his head as if struck by a violent realization or a splitting headache. And the grit on his teeth tells us that whatever he just sensed means the nightmare is far from over. And then, snap, total realization. In this extreme close-up, the world narrows down to a single wide eye where the pupil shrinks in absolute shock, and as the sweat rolls down his face, that choked gasp confirms he isn't just surprised, he is witnessing a nightmare coming to life. And here is the gruesome reveal. The silence is shattered by the sickening sound of flesh tearing as we see his body suddenly erupt in a fountain of dark blood and jagged wounds, proving that the enemy attack didn't just miss. It landed with a delayed, lethal precision that has turned his moment of relief into a desperate fight for survival. But the silence is a deadly lie. As he scans the graveyard of fallen enemies, his relief is immediately shattered when he spots a single masked figure crouching amidst the bodies, a silent predator whose calm presence in the chaos signals that the real boss fight is only just beginning. But panic is quickly replaced by cold, hard calculation. In this intense close-up, the warrior's expression hardens as he locks eyes with his attacker, the sweat and rain mixing on a face that shows zero fear, only the terrifying focus of a veteran fighter who has analyzed the situation and decided that the only way out is through extreme violence. Talk about a terrifying shift in perspective. We now see the battlefield through the enemy's eyes, looking down from the high ground past a massive boot into the fractured crater where the hero stands alone among the dead, visually establishing that he is trapped, vulnerable, and literally beneath the monster he now has to fight. And finally, the true monsters reveal themselves. Standing untouched high above the bloody mud, we see a lethal swordsman and a mysterious figure hiding a smirk behind a fan, looking down with the cold arrogance of predators who know that the exhausted warrior in the pit is no longer a threat, but simply their next victim. Talk about a chilling victory lap. Here, we see the pure arrogance of the attackers up close, with the swordsman wearing a sinister smirk that openly mocks his trapped prey, while his partner's cold eyes peering over her fan reveal that to them, this desperate life or death struggle is nothing more than amusing entertainment. But take a look at that piercing glare. In this intense close-up, calculation turns into lethal intent as his sharp side-eye cuts through the rain to lock onto his enemies, proving that despite the overwhelming odds, he isn't looking for a way out, he's looking for a way to kill. And here comes the boom. Exploding into motion, he unleashes a devastating kick that shatters the stillness, generating a massive jagged shockwave of pure force that rips through the foreground, instantly proving to the arrogant observers above that the man they thought was cornered is actually just getting started. And instantly, the hunter turns into the hunted. The masked assassin's composure completely shatters as he frantically screams out to the sword demon for salvation, his wide, panicked eyes and desperate stutter revealing that he knows he's hopelessly outmatched and that his only chance of survival lies in the hands of the monster watching from above. But his plea is answered with a death sentence. In a blinding flash, a massive diagonal slash tears the screen in half, instantly silencing the screams as dark blood sprays across the void, and those glowing eyes in the shadow reveal that the sword demon didn't come to rescue a failure, he came to erase one. Talk about a grim delivery. The brutal slash is followed by a sickening thud as the assassin's lifeless body is tossed into the pit like garbage, and as the hero looks up through the pouring rain, he realizes the enemy above isn't just powerful. He is a monster who treats his own allies as nothing more than disposable pawns. And in that silence, true horror sets in. Staring up through the relentless rain, the warrior's face hardens not with fear, but with pure disgust, his grim expression confirming that he finally understands the depth of his enemy's depravity, realizing that he isn't just fighting a skilled swordsman, but a heartless beast who slaughters his own men without blinking. And then, the cold truth hits home. In this grim close-up, the warrior's expression shifts from disgust to calculation as the rain streaks down his face. That single internal thought, "he fights dirty," confirms he realizes he isn't facing an honorable swordsman, but a ruthless monster who will break every rule in the book just to see him dead. Talk about a chilling calling card. We zoom in to find a crude wooden tag hanging from his sword hilt with the single word, blood, etched into it. A grim detail that confirms this monster doesn't fight for honor or loyalty, he exists solely to spill it. But instead of fear, we see a twisted kind of relief. That subtle, dangerous smirk curling on his lips tells us everything we need to know. He isn't disgusted by a villain who fights dirty. He's actually excited, because it gives him the green light to finally unleash his own inner monster without holding anything back. And now, the beast is finally off the leash. We see the last shred of hesitation vanish as his face contorts into a feral snarl, and as he violently tightens his grip, those glowing eyes declare that if the enemy wants a dirty fight, he is going to show them what true brutality actually looks like. And now, the devil descends. With the eerie grace of a phantom, we see the sword demon finally leaving his high ground, his robes billowing like the wings of a predator as he glides into the pit to face his opponent on equal footing, signaling that the time for games is over and the true slaughter is about to begin. But first, a single breath to clear the noise. We see him force a sharp exhale through clenched teeth, shaking off the adrenaline as the sweat pours down his face, and that intense, side-eye glare confirms that this isn't a sigh of relief. It's the sound of a beast steadying its pulse before going in for the kill. Talk about locking and loading. The silence is finally broken by the sharp snap of tightening fabric as he secures his blood-stained bandages, a gritty detail that proves he is literally strapping in his weapons his own fists, because he knows that in a dirty fight, the only thing he can truly rely on is his own broken body. And here is the face of absolute cruelty. As he lands, that chilling smirk reveals he feels zero remorse for slaughtering his own ally, instead locking onto the hero with the hungry eyes of a predator who thinks he's finally found a toy that might actually be fun to break. Talk about a lethal opening move. The sword demon instantly closes the gap, unleashing a barrage of purple energy slashes that tear through the air with blinding speed, proving that with that sadistic grin, he isn't here to duel, he's here to execute. Talk about a clash of catastrophic proportions. The screen erupts in chaos as the hero's crackling blue lightning violently intercepts the sword demon's dark energy, creating a blinding shockwave that tears the air apart, and proves that this fist fighter isn't just dodging death anymore, he's meeting it head-on with equal force. Talk about a shock to the system. In a split second, the hero closes the gap to tower over his opponent, his eyes burning with intense blue energy as he charges a lethal lightning strike at point-blank range, proving that he hasn't just survived the sword demon's attack, he has completely turned the tables to become the predator. But the response is chillingly silent. Instead of an impact, the camera cuts to the back of the sword demon's head, motionless and unbothered, hiding his face to create a moment of pure dread that warns us the hero's all-out attack didn't just miss the mark, it didn't even scratch the surface. Talk about a shocking reality check. The screen explodes in a blinding flash of blue lightning as the hero's strike connects with earth-shattering force, and for the first time, we see the sword demon's eyes go wide in genuine disbelief, proving that the helpless prey just hit back hard enough to finally make the predator panic. And just like that, the smile is slapped right off his face. In this visceral close-up, the sword demon's composure shatters into pure agony as he violently coughs up blood, his wide, trembling eyes confirming that the hero's lightning strike didn't just land, it rattled his very soul, and proved that this god is actually very, very mortal. And the satisfaction is written all over his face. In this gritty close-up, a blood-streaked smirk curls on the hero's lips, revealing that he isn't just fighting for survival anymore, he's actually enjoying the moment, because he knows he just proved that the so-called sword demon is nothing more than flesh and blood. With his fist engulfed in blinding blue lightning, the warrior channels every ounce of his fury into one decisive strike. The stark contrast between the heavy shadows and the crackling energy highlights his unshakable resolve, proving that he is ready to end this battle with a single, overwhelming blow. The hero unleashes a merciless barrage of strikes, shouting out the count 3, 4, 5, as each punch lands with a blinding explosion of force. This relentless combo overwhelms the sword demon instantly, proving that the hero is no longer just fighting back, he is systematically dismantling his opponent with terrifying precision. But wait, something is wrong. As he lands his 8th massive strike, the hero realizes with a shock that every single punch is mysteriously missing the enemy's weakest spots, a terrifying detail that suggests he isn't overwhelming the sword demon at all, he is being subtly guided away from the kill. And the hidden puppet master finally reveals her hand. Perched high above the carnage, the mysterious woman in purple steps forward and fires beams of controlling energy across the battlefield, confirming that she is the invisible force steering the hero's punches astray and ensuring that this duel was rigged from the very start. Now, the invisible chains become visible. As he winds up for another strike, we see the purple energy trails physically coiling around his arm and diverting his aim mid-swing, confirming that he's trapped in a rigged game where his own raw power is being subtly hijacked by the sorceress above. Talk about a twisted puppeteer. In this chilling close-up, the sorceress's cruel smirk and glowing red eyes reveal her pure sadistic delight, and as she delicately twitches her fingers to manipulate the purple threads, it confirms that she views this brutal life or death battle as nothing more than a game where the hero is just another toy to be broken. In this intense close-up, shock turns into fury as the hero's eyes widen with the realization that he isn't just unlucky. The sweat on his face and his gritted teeth show the moment he connects the dots, understanding that his attacks are being physically redirected by an invisible force, turning his own strength against him. The ominous click of the thumb releasing the guard marks the beginning of the end. As the sword demon's grip tightens, he prepares to punish the distracted hero with a lightning-fast counterattack that will turn that momentary confusion into a fatal mistake. In a brutal instant, the trap snaps shut. Seizing the hero's moment of confusion, the sword demon lunges from below and drives his blade clean through the shoulder, proving that while the warrior was too busy fighting the invisible strings, he left himself completely wide open for the kill. The consequences are immediate and brutal. We see the warrior choke as he violently coughs up a mouthful of dark blood, his pained grimace confirming that the cheap shot didn't just break his concentration, it dealt critical internal damage that has finally brought this unstoppable force to a desperate halt. In this chilling moment of intimacy, the sword demon leans in until he is inches away, his cold, piercing gaze locking onto his wounded enemy not with anger, but with the detached curiosity of a predator inspecting its kill, proving that to him, this entire brutal struggle was never a fight, it was just an execution. In this extreme close-up, the sword demon's arrogance instantly evaporates. His pupil constricts in sharp realization while sweat beads on his temple, confirming that despite the blood splattered across his face, he senses that the fatal blow he just delivered didn't kill his enemy, it only made him angrier. Ignoring the blade impaled through his body, the warrior looms over his attacker like a shadowed nightmare, proving that pain is irrelevant. With his fist crackling with lightning, he reveals that the stab wound didn't kill him, it simply locked the enemy in place for a point-blank execution that is about to end this fight instantly. In this terrifying close-up, the sword demon's arrogance instantly crumbles into pure panic as the hero's lightning-charged fist fills his entire vision, and that desperate grimace confirms he finally realizes that his cheap shot didn't win the fight, it just signed his death warrant. In this frozen split second of disbelief, the sword demon's face goes completely slack, his wide, trembling eye betraying the terrifying realization that he has made a fatal mistake. The sharp sound of impact beside his ear confirms that the hero's counterattack has landed, instantly wiping away his arrogance and proving that his reign of terror is officially over. Recovering from the shock, the sword demon's expression shifts back to a cruel sneer as he glances over his shoulder, looking down at his bloodied opponent with renewed arrogance, fully convinced that the failed counterattack was nothing more than the last, futile gasp of a dying warrior. In this breathtaking wide shot, the camera pulls back to reveal a massive scar gouged deep into the earth, where the sheer force of the battle has obliterated the landscape. The lingering blue lightning crackling along the trench leads our eyes to the tiny figures on the platform, emphasizing that their duel has escalated beyond a simple fight into a catastrophic event that is literally tearing the world apart. Here, we see the chilling dynamic between the villains, as the sorceress watches the destruction with a satisfied smile, treating the violence like entertainment, while the sword demon's panic shouting behind her reveals that he is the only one who truly understands the danger they are now in. The panic is gone, replaced by a sickening sense of amusement. Crouching over his opponent, the sword demon points a mocking finger directly at the hero's head, and that stifled, kukuk laugh reveals that he's regained his arrogant composure, treating the warrior's struggle not as a near-death experience, but as a hilarious waste of time. That arrogant laugh is instantly cut short by a savage uppercut that connects with a sickening crunch, snapping the sword demon's head back and spraying blood into the rain, proving that while he was busy gloating, that the warrior was just waiting for the perfect opening to shut him up permanently. In this brutal close-up, the lights literally go out. His eyes roll back into his skull as blood splatters across his face, confirming that the uppercut didn't just hurt him, it scrambled his senses, and instantly erased every trace of his smug arrogance. In this chilling close-up, the hero looks down at his defeated enemy with a blood-soaked grin that screams pure satisfaction. The sweat and injuries are forgotten as his sharp, predatory gaze confirms that he didn't just win a fight, he successfully executed a trap, and he is savoring every moment of his opponent's downfall. In this sudden shift of tone, the lethal atmosphere cracks into pure frustration as the sword demon's face contorts in annoyance, his popping vein revealing he knows he is being mocked, while the sorceress hides a snicker behind her fan, proving that the hero hasn't just survived, he has successfully turned their deadly game into a humiliating joke. In this gritty close-up, the physical toll is undeniable as dark blood spills from his mouth, yet that stubborn, blood-soaked smirk tells a different story. Even with his eyes closed in exhaustion, he refuses to show weakness, proving that while his body might be breaking, his spirit is still laughing right in the face of his executioners. That defiance instantly manifests into a catastrophic explosion. A massive pillar of blue lightning erupts from the courtyard, scattering the birds and shattering the surroundings, proving that the hero's true power has finally awakened to level the entire battlefield. The chaos fades into an eerie stillness. As the scene shifts to this grand, silent palace overlooking the water, the meanwhile caption signals a sudden change in perspective, suggesting that while the battlefield burns, something equally important, and perhaps even more dangerous, is quietly unfolding behind these closed doors. Inside the quiet palace, the atmosphere shifts from violence to suffocating dread. We see a young woman peering through the shadows with a face full of concern, timidly asking if everything is alright, and those wide, anxious eyes tell us that she knows the peace here is fragile and that something terrible is happening just beyond the walls. The violence is replaced by a quiet moment of concern. We see a young woman with wide, trembling eyes leaning in to check on someone, her gentle expression serving as a stark reminder that while monsters fight outside, there are still innocent people inside who are just trying to make sure their loved ones are safe. The stillness is instantly shattered as the figure violently bolts upright, clutching their head in sudden distress. The girl's wide-eyed shock confirms this isn't a peaceful recovery, it's a frantic, jarring awakening, suggesting that the nightmare isn't just on the battlefield, but has followed them all the way into this. He instinctively clutches his stomach, his trembling hands gripping the fabric tight as he frantically searches for a wound that isn't there. The cold sweat and desperate confusion suggest he expected to be dead, and that cut-off gasp reveals he's just realized that while his body is whole, something vital might be missing. The nightmare abruptly ends, replaced by the quiet luxury of a noble's chamber where a servant gently attends to him, and as he sits up in the soft morning light, his dazed posture reveals that waking up safe and sound is far more disorienting than the death he was just expecting. In this quiet moment of discovery, he stares into the mirror not with vanity, but with absolute disbelief. As he examines the face staring back at him, the confusion in his eyes suggests that he isn't just checking for injuries, he is trying to reconcile the vivid memory of his gruesome death with the flawless, living reality he now sees before him. In this jarring close-up, he studies the unfamiliar face staring back at him with pure disbelief. The sunken eyes and frail features are a far cry from the warrior he was moments ago, confirming that he hasn't just cheated death, he's been reincarnated into the body of a sickly stranger. But the gravity of the moment is instantly ruined by his body's pathetic weakness. In a comedic twist, he violently expels a sparkling rainbow of vomit, shocking the maid and confirming that while his spirit is still a warrior, he is now trapped in a vessel that can barely handle being awake. Disbelief turns into frantic desperation as he starts aggressively groping his face and pulling his hair, the repetitive sound effects highlighting his clumsy panic as he tries to physically verify that this unfamiliar, weak stranger he sees in the mirror is actually real. In a desperate attempt to deny reality, he claws at his own neck searching for a seam, hoping that this unfamiliar face is just a mask he can peel off. But the smooth, unbroken skin confirms the horrifying truth that this frail body is not a disguise, it is his new life. His frantic denial fades into a numb, awkward daze. As he pinches his cheek to test if he is dreaming, the servant sweating in the background watches in pure terror, clearly convinced that her master hasn't just lost his memory, he's completely lost his mind. And the situation spirals from awkward to chaotic. As he continues to violently pinch his face in a desperate attempt to wake up from this nightmare, the terrified servant decides she has seen enough and sprints out of the room, convinced that her master hasn't just woken up sick, he has woken up completely insane. The sharp sting on his cheek delivers the final, undeniable proof. Frozen in pure disbelief with his hands still hovering mid-air, his vacant stare confirms that he has finally accepted the horrifying truth. The legendary warrior is dead, and he is now trapped living as this fragile, sickly stranger. With a sharp thud, the servant slams the door on the chaos, her crossed arms and exasperated expression revealing that she has officially decided her master's sudden descent into insanity is a problem she simply isn't paid enough to deal with. Left alone in the silence, he finally takes a moment to process his grim reality. As he sits on the edge of the ornate bed, the text above reveals a cruel twist of fate. This frail body belongs to the demonic faction, meaning he hasn't just been reborn. He has woken up deep within the territory of the very enemies he once fought to destroy. But the time for panic is over. Staring into the mirror with a newfound calm, he studies every inch of the stranger's face, and the steely determination hardening in his eyes confirms that he has accepted his bizarre fate and is already calculating exactly how to turn this weak, fragile vessel into a weapon capable of destroying his enemies from within. In this moment of quiet contemplation, the panic finally subsides as he turns his attention to the room before him, scanning the sunlit study stacked high with scrolls and books. He realizes that this isn't just a workspace, it is a treasure trove of information, and if he plans to survive deep within enemy territory, his first battle won't be fought with fists, but with the secrets hidden on these shelves. He immediately jumps to his feet to test his combat readiness, attempting to snap into a fighting stance, but his comical, wobbly movements instantly confirm the brutal reality. His mind still knows how to fight, but this pathetic body can barely even handle standing up. He turns his back to the humiliation and tries again, forcing his trembling limbs into a proper combat stance. But that stiff, awkward posture reveals the brutal truth. His mind is still a grand master, but his body is fighting a losing battle just to stay upright. And the humiliation is complete. As he strains to hold the pose, his legs shake so uncontrollably that he is visually compared to a wobbling newborn deer, and that pained grimace confirms that his once legendary strength has been reduced to the trembling frailty of a fawn trying to take its first steps. Slumping into his chair with a look of pure disgust, he delivers the final verdict on his new vessel. That blunt declaration of absolute garbage confirms that after testing his limits, his professional assessment is that this frail body isn't just weak, it is a complete disaster that offers zero foundation for a warrior of his caliber. In this moment of discovery, a vital clue emerges from the clutter. As his gaze lands on the Una Merchant Group document, he realizes that this frail body comes with deep pockets, offering him a financial lifeline that might just be the key to buying the resources he needs to rebuild his legendary strength. In this dazzling vision of prosperity, the sky rains gold coins and massive bars over the estate, symbolizing the sudden realization that his new identity comes with limitless resources, granting him the financial firepower to bypass his physical weakness and simply buy the strength, medicine, and influence he needs to rise again. In this sharp shift of focus, the golden fantasy is instantly broken by a presence at the door. He snaps his head around, and for a split second, the lethargic invalid disappears, replaced by a warrior whose sharp instincts are already assessing the new arrival before they even step into the room. And naturally, the headache continues. As he unrolls a scroll filled with desperate, cutesy messages, his look of pure disdain confirms that the first young master wasn't just rich, he was a notorious playboy, leaving this battle-hardened warrior to deal with a mess of romantic entanglements he finds more exhausting than any war. The headache makes perfect sense now. As he buries his face in his hand, the shameful memory of his new body's past life chugging alcohol reveals the humiliating truth. He hasn't just inherited a weak constitution, he's inherited the consequences of a lifetime of reckless, drunken stupidity. In this moment of reflection, the humiliation fades as he recalls the man he actually is. We see a vision of his original body, rugged, scarred, and radiating power, standing in sharp contrast to his current frailty, serving as a silent promise that he won't stop until he drags this weak, alcoholic vessel back up to the level of the god of war he once was. But the fantasy instantly evaporates, leaving him with the cold, hard truth. His stoic, slightly annoyed expression and the sweat beading on his temple reveal that he knows looking back at his glory days won't save him. He has to accept this pathetic reality and start the grueling work of rebuilding a legend from scratch. In this moment of quiet introspection, he turns to his greatest remaining weapon. As he sits at the desk, he realizes that while his body is weak, his mind is still a library of legendary martial arts, proving that he already holds the blueprint to rebuild himself into a god of war. His expression hardens into cold resolve as he shifts his focus from the past to the immediate future. The panic of reincarnation has faded, replaced by the calculating gaze of a veteran warrior who understands that while he has lost his physical strength, his tactical genius remains dangerously intact. Talk about a dramatic entrance. The servant girl's frantic exit has triggered a full-blown emergency as an older retainer bursts through the doors, practically sliding across the floor in sheer terror, his desperate scream confirming that everyone here lives in constant fear that their fragile, troublemaking master is about to drop dead. In this suffocating close-up, the retainer invades his personal space with an explosion of frantic concern, and his screaming expression proves that for this loyal servant, a simple headache isn't a minor ailment, it is a catastrophic emergency that warrants a full-blown panic attack. In this moment of shared bewilderment, the hysteria is just too much to handle. As he recoils from the screaming servant, his annoyance is perfectly mirrored by the ghost of his past self, creating a hilarious split screen where both the frail invalid and the veteran warrior are united by the exact same question: who the hell is this loud old man? In this moment of melodramatic relief, the old retainer breaks down sobbing, wiping a tear from his eye as the tension leaves his body. This overwhelming emotional reaction to simply seeing his master awake confirms just how fragile this new vessel is. Apparently, just surviving the night without dying is considered a miraculous achievement in this household. The retainer's dramatic sobbing instantly hardens into a serious expression, but the hero's skeptical side-eye in the background reveals that he isn't buying the emotional performance, coldly assessing whether this loud old man is a loyal servant or just another headache he'll have to manage. With a bow and a smile, The retainer orders the usual meal to be brought in, but given the young master's reputation for self-destruction, that innocent phrase is actually a warning sign that what's coming through the door isn't a healthy breakfast, but likely the very poison that ruined this body in the first place. In this steaming close-up, the usual meal is revealed to be a heavy medicinal concoction packed with whole chicken, turtle shell, and herbs, confirming that this isn't breakfast, it is a desperate, high-potency survival stew designed to force vitality back into a body that is constantly on the verge of failing. In this moment of clarity, his disgust transforms into a hungry grin as he realizes the potential in his hands. That sharp laugh reveals he finally understands that while his body is weak, he has the ultimate advantage: unlimited access to the expensive medicinal fuel he needs to power level his recovery and rebuild his strength from the inside out. In this crucial moment of diagnosis, the warrior grips his own wrist to check his internal energy, and that cut-off realization he tried uncovers the grim truth. The previous owner didn't just ruin this body with alcohol, he shattered his own meridians with a foolish, failed attempt at cultivation. But this grim diagnosis doesn't break him, it focuses him. In this intense close-up, we see the frustration harden into cold determination, proving that he isn't intimidated by the impossible task of fixing his shattered body. He is simply calculating exactly how much pain it's going to take to rebuild it. In a blink, the tears vanish. The retainer's face snaps into an overly enthusiastic, ear-to-ear grin as he clasps his hands together, and this sudden shift from hysterical sobbing to fawning joy proves that dealing with this man's emotional whiplash is going to be just as exhausting as fixing his broken body. In this tense exchange, the retainer's expression snaps back to sweating seriousness, but the hero's cold, skeptical glare reveals that he is completely unimpressed, silently confirming that he sees right through the old man's dramatic flair and is already losing patience with his erratic behavior. In this moment of weary dismissal, the hero raises a hand to silence the noise. His averted gaze and exhausted expression make it crystal clear that he has zero patience for the old man's theatrics, signaling that the conversation is over and he simply wants to be left alone to handle his new reality in peace. In this moment of weary dismissal, the hero raises a hand to silence the noise. His averted gaze and exhausted expression make it crystal clear that he has zero patience for the old man's theatrics, signaling that the conversation is over and he simply wants to be left alone to handle his new reality in peace. As the door finally slides shut, the silence returns. He lets out a long, heavy sigh of relief, his slumped shoulders revealing that dealing with the hysterical concern of his servants is actually proving to be more exhausting than the physical pain of his weak body. With the noise finally shut out, the real work begins. As he reaches back to tie up his hair, that simple, deliberate gesture marks the shift from confusion to focus, signaling that he is done playing the invalid and is ready to start the long, grueling climb back to power. In a flash of terrifying recognition, the pieces fall into place. As the words, "the demonic," appear, the memory of his killers, the smug swordsman and the schemer hiding behind her fan floods back, confirming the ultimate irony. He hasn't just been reborn, he has awoken as a noble within the very faction that murdered him. The retainer's expression shifts back to a beaming, obsequious grin as he announces the arrival of the physician, confirming that for this fragile young master, urgent medical attention isn't an emergency measure, it's a daily routine necessary just to keep his pathetic body functioning. In this sharp close-up, the fragile act completely vanishes. As he inspects his hand with a calculating smirk, he realizes the physician's arrival is the perfect opportunity, confirming that he isn't planning to just get well, he's planning to exploit every resource to force this weak body to catch up with his lethal ambition. In this intense close-up, the playful facade instantly hardens into pure strategy. As he clasps his hands and narrows his glowing blue eyes, the ominous shadowing confirms that he isn't just waiting for the doctor, he is actively plotting how to manipulate the diagnosis to secure the power he needs to rise again. And the planning phase instantly shifts to execution in the most delicious way possible. The table groans under a sparkling feast of grilled meats and steaming rice, confirming that his first step to recovery isn't grueling training, but using his bottomless wealth to fuel his broken body back to life. And the gossip spreads fast. The maids huddle in disbelief, shocked that the frail master who once survived on thin porridge is now demanding massive feasts every day. Unaware that he isn't just filling his stomach, he is aggressively fueling the transformation of his weak body into a weapon. The grueling regimen is finally bearing fruit. As he wipes the sweat from his brow, the newfound definition in his chest and the confident set of his jaw reveal that the frail invalid is dead, replaced by a developing warrior who is rapidly forcing this weak vessel to match the strength of his spirit. The results are undeniable as the servant bows before a master she barely recognizes. Standing tall with a physique carved from expensive medicine, he has successfully shed the skin of the invalid, proving that his strategy to force his recovery has paid off in full. In this moment of casual command, he cements his transformation. By ordering that the massive, expensive feast be kept simple, he confirms that high-grade fuel is his new baseline, and the powerful muscles rippling across his back prove that his body is finally ready to handle the weight of his ambition. As he turns his back to dress, the servants are left exchanging wide-eyed glances of pure shock. Their stunned expressions reveal that they are struggling to process the sudden change, confirming that the frail master they once pitied has vanished, replaced by a commanding figure who now demands their attention without saying a word. And just like that, the so-called simple breakfast begins. He shovels down the steaming rice with a look of pure bliss, proving that for a warrior trapped in a broken body, this mountain of expensive calories isn't just a meal, it is the first delicious step in his master plan to reclaim his lost power. But the peaceful feast is instantly ruined by the peanut gallery. As he pauses mid-bite with a look of pure irritation, the dark aura radiating from him confirms that he can hear every word of their whispering, and he is quickly losing patience with being treated like a zoo exhibit in his own home. The retainer instantly steps in to cut the chatter, physically nudging the maid into silence with a stern glare. This sharp correction proves that he senses the shift in the room's atmosphere, realizing that the master's irritation is a warning sign they can no longer afford to ignore. That flash of irritation instantly twists into a dark, knowing smirk. As he scoffs at the disrespect, the retainer's sudden shock confirms that the master isn't just a passive invalid anymore. He's sharp enough to catch every whisper, and arrogant enough to find their fear entertaining. The tension dissolves into an almost blinding display of relief. The retainer instantly switches back to his role, beaming with an over-the-top smile and an enthusiastic gesture, clearly desperate to smooth over the awkwardness and pretend that he didn't just witness a terrifying glimpse of his master's true nature. As the retainer rushes off, the hero watches with a cold, calculating gaze. His internal thought reveals a lingering suspicion he can't reconcile the man's excessive groveling with his own reputation as a failure, suggesting he knows there's a hidden layer to this household's loyalty that he has yet to uncover. A dark, predatory smile curls on his lips as suspicion transforms into a game plan. With the chilling decision to catch this little rat, he confirms that he is done being a passive observer and is ready to hunt down the truth behind his servant's bizarre behavior to see exactly what secrets are hiding in the shadows. In this tense confrontation, the hero casually drops the bait with a simple question, and the physician's wide-eyed stutter reveals that he wasn't ready for his fragile patient to suddenly become the interrogator, proving that the power dynamic in this room has officially shifted. The transformation is finally undeniable. As the master casually sips his drink, the retainers are losing their minds over his healthy glow, with one literally sobbing in relief, confirming that his aggressive recovery strategy has worked so well. It's shocking the very people who expected him to die. In this satisfied close-up, a confident smirk plays on his lips as he sips his drink, revealing that he isn't just enjoying the retainer's shock, he's reveling in the fact that his plan worked perfectly, proving that even in this borrowed body, he is already regaining the upper hand. With a devilish smirk, he calls out the true value of his feast. By joking that they're trying to seduce him with the legendary dragon phoenix soup, he confirms that he knows exactly how precious this medicinal fuel is, and he intends to exploit their desperate hospitality to the last drop to guarantee his ascension. In this moment of stunned silence, the joke lands with the force of a physical slap. The retainer's wide-eyed shock and the sudden sweat on his brow reveal that he didn't hear a jest, he heard a warning, realizing that the invalid he's been babysitting is suddenly sharp enough to see right through their expensive bribery. Recovering from the shock, the physician hastily retreats to the safety of medical jargon, raising a finger to lecture his master that this legendary dish is strictly a prescription, a desperate attempt to normalize the conversation and pretend he wasn't just rattled by the invalid's sudden sharpness. With a dismissive wave and a terrifyingly casual smile, he drops a dark joke about poison that instantly freezes the room. And this calculated jab proves that he isn't just being sarcastic, he is actively testing their loyalty by reminding them that he knows exactly how dangerous life in the demonic faction truly is. The retainer explodes in panic at the mere mention of poison, his jaw hitting the floor in sheer terror. But the hero just casually chews on his chopsticks with a bored expression, proving that he holds all the power now, and is turning their genuine fear into his personal lunchtime entertainment. In this moment of theatrical sulking, the joke backfires into a full-blown guilt trip. As the retainer turns away and threatens to leave, his dramatic reaction confirms that he isn't actually going anywhere, he is just weaponizing his hurt feelings to emotionally blackmail his master into taking the medicine. But the dramatic exit is instantly halted. The retainer freezes in his tracks, his hopeful, stuttering response revealing that his threat to leave was a complete bluff, while the master sits back in total control, proving that he knows exactly how to manipulate his servant's loyalty to get what he wants. In this chilling power move, he flips the script entirely. With a piercing glare and a voice dripping with authority, he corners the retainer with a single question, proving that he isn't just a sickly master to be pitied, he is a ruler who decides when you arrive and, more importantly, when you are allowed to leave. In this moment of crushing dominance, the retainer freezes in sheer terror as the hero drops the ultimate reality check. That single, icy question demands to know who is truly in charge, instantly shattering the servant's confidence and proving that the days of disrespecting this sickly master are officially over. And then, total whiplash. He dissolves the suffocating terror with a casual laugh, claiming it was all a joke. But as the servant wipes the cold sweat from his brow, that smug grin confirms he wasn't kidding, he was simply reminding his dog exactly who holds the leash. The power struggle ends in total submission. As the physician bows and meekly accepts the order, his defeated posture confirms that the master's terrifying joke worked perfectly, instantly stripping away the servant's authority and re-establishing the proper hierarchy without spilling a single drop of blood. And now, the patient becomes the master. With a mouthful of food, he casually commands the sweating physician to pick up his brush, proving that he is done following orders and is ready to use his own superior knowledge to dictate the exact terms of his resurrection. The hierarchy is instantly flipped on its head. As the physician puts brush to paper with a nervous, focused gaze, he silently accepts his new reality. He is no longer the doctor giving orders, but a mere scribe recording the blueprint for his master's return to power. In this moment of terrifying clarity, the physician freezes in the master's menacing shadow. As he listens to the sarcastic apology for a stubbornly long life, his dilated pupil reveals the chilling realization that he isn't treating a patient anymore, he is standing in the presence of a predator who demands absolute obedience. In this moment of sharp impatience, the master snaps the physician out of his frozen terror with a single cold demand. His piercing blue gaze and clipped tone make it crystal clear that this isn't a consultation, it is a dictation, and he expects every single word of his recovery plan to be recorded without hesitation. The physician freezes with his brush in midair, his nervous, bewildered smile revealing that he has absolutely no idea what is happening. As he stammers out a confused question, it becomes clear that he isn't just taking dictation, he is witnessing a medical miracle where the patient suddenly knows more than the doctor. In this dizzying close-up, the physician's reality literally begins to warp as the master rattles off a complex prescription, and his wide, trembling eye reveals the moment his professional pride is shattered by the realization that the invalid he was treating is actually a medical genius who knows far more than he does. The quiet dictation is obliterated in an instant as a massive golden projectile tears through the scene with terrifying velocity, smashing into the structure with a kinetic shockwave that shatters the stone and signals that the peaceful recovery phase is officially over. In this terrified close-up, the physician clutches his throat, frantically checking to make sure his head is still attached. That wide-eyed stare and cold sweat confirm that the sudden explosion of violence has shattered his composure, proving that a simple medical consultation has just turned into a fight for survival. And the mask finally drops. In this terrifying close-up, the master's expression hardens into pure menace as his glowing blue eyes lock onto the physician, confirming that the earlier projectile wasn't a mistake, it was a warning shot, and his patience has officially run out. In this defining moment, he points a threatening finger to deliver the absolute truth. By explicitly declaring that the man of the past is dead, he confirms that the fragile invalid has been completely erased, replaced by a ruthless master who now demands nothing less than total submission. In this moment of pure bewilderment, the physician's reality finally snaps. As he sweats and shouts in desperate confusion, his terrified expression confirms that the master's cryptic declaration wasn't just a figure of speech, it was a terrifying admission that the weakling he once knew is dead and gone. He completely ignores the confusion and gets straight to business. By demanding the dragon phoenix soup as his first priority, he proves that he isn't just asking for a meal, he is prescribing a specific, high-level cure, leaving the stunned physician with no choice but to shut up and follow his lead. In this moment of medical brilliance, he reveals the deadly paradox hiding in plain sight. By explaining that a legendary healing tonic acts like a lethal poison to a body as shattered as his, he demonstrates a mastery of internal energy that far surpasses the physician's, proving that he understands exactly how dangerous the path to his recovery truly is. With a confident gulp, he drives the final nail into the physician's pride. As he downs the bowl, his condescending reminder that a doctor should know this transforms the consultation into a classroom, leaving the shamed professional with no choice but to bow his head and accept that his patient is now the one teaching the lesson. But the doctor is just waiting for the crash. In this moment of silent judgment, the physician watches with a smug grin, fully expecting the master to collapse in agony as his internal thought reveals he believes the potent soup is currently wrecking the master's internal energy, and he is just counting down the seconds until his patient's inevitable failure proves him right. But the master instantly rips away the mask of concern. By calling out the physician for secretly checking his pulse, he exposes the dark truth that the doctor wasn't monitoring his recovery, he was verifying his death. And that stammering excuse confirms he is terrified now that his corpse is talking back. In this visceral close-up, the memory of that cold, checking grip returns to condemn him. The physician thought his patient was too far gone to notice, but that hand on the wrist was felt with crystal clarity, turning a secret death check into the smoking gun that proves he was waiting for a corpse, not a recovery. With a calculated pause, he shifts his gaze to deliver the final verdict. That ominous transition, and most importantly, warns the terrified physician that the lecture isn't over, and the master is about to drop the final, undeniable piece of logic that will strip away his last shred of defense. In this calculated dismissal, he suddenly feigns a loss of appetite and clears the room. By demanding total solitude with the precious tonic, he confirms that he isn't just going to drink it, he intends to use secret cultivation techniques to absorb its power, ensuring that no one witnesses the true beginning of his transformation. In this chilling standoff, the master corners the trembling physician with a lethal accusation. By revealing that he felt the murderous intent behind the so-called care, he proves he isn't just a patient, he is a judge ready to pass sentence on the traitors hiding in his own home. In this moment of paralyzed shock, the physician's facade completely crumbles. As he stares into the abyss of his master's knowledge, his trembling grip on the bowl reveals the terrifying realization that his secret assassination plot hasn't just failed, it has been stripped bare by the very victim he thought was too weak to survive. He doesn't even put down his chopsticks to deliver the final ultimatum. By demanding the name of the true mastermind, he proves that he sees the physician as nothing more than a pawn, and he is already setting his sights on hunting down the real enemy pulling the strings. The physician finally breaks, his shadowed face and hollow expression revealing that he has nothing left to hide. His quiet question isn't a defense, but a plea for understanding, proving that he is utterly baffled by how the foolish invalid he was sent to kill has suddenly transformed into a terrifying monster. In this moment of total surrender, the physician buries his face in defeat, realizing that his assassination plot has been completely dismantled, while the master's piercing blue eye watches from the shadows with terrifying patience, waiting to extract the name of the true enemy who ordered his death. In this terrifying vision, the true mastermind finally emerges from the shadows. With glowing red eyes and a twisted grin, he mocks the physician's hesitation, revealing that in his twisted world, the only real crime wasn't the attempted murder, it was having the conscience to actually feel bad about it. With a cold dismissal, the master decides that mercy was a waste of time. He mocks his own attempt to offer the traitor a dignified exit and demands the physician drop the act to show his true colors, proving that he has absolutely no patience for a killer who hesitates to own their crimes. In this moment of psychotic desperation, the physician decides to burn it all down. With a crazed grin and a sinister side glance at the innocent maid, he resolves to massacre every witness in the room, proving that he isn't just a poisoner, he is a cornered rat willing to slaughter an entire household just to save his own skin. In this split second of lethal action, the cornered rat finally strikes. He draws a concealed needle that glints with deadly promise, proving that his healing hands are actually instruments of murder as he launches a desperate, point-blank attack to silence the only witness to his crimes forever. But the ambush is crushed in a split second. Moving with blinding speed, the master intercepts the attack before it lands, and that terrifying red glint in his eye confirms that the physician hasn't just failed to kill his target, he has walked straight into the jaws of a monster who is waiting for him to make a move. In a split second, the interception turns into a brutal punishment. The physician's face crumples under the sheer weight of the impact, spraying blood and saliva as the master's strike shatters his jaw, proving that the frail invalid still possesses enough force to crush a traitor with a single blow. In this display of absolute dominance, he sends the traitor flying with a devastating kick, without even dropping his chicken leg. His bored expression and casual command to not get distracted prove that he considers this assassination attempt nothing more than a minor annoyance interrupting his lunch. And the disrespect is absolute. As he aggressively tears into the chicken leg to finish his sentence, his cold, narrowed eyes confirm that he views the assassination attempt not as a threat, but merely as a rude interruption to his lunch that doesn't even warrant putting down his food. But even a flawless victory comes with a stinging price. As he rubs his throbbing hand while still clutching his lunch, the frustration in his eyes reveals the embarrassing reality: his attack might have crushed the assassin, but his new body is so pathetic that delivering a single kick hurt him almost as much as it hurt the victim. In this moment of grim realization, the victory feels hollow. As he stares at his own hand, the urgency of his situation finally sinks in. He realizes he can't rely on tricks forever, and if he doesn't recover his true strength immediately, the next assassin won't be as easy to crush as a frail old doctor. In this moment of grim realization, the victory feels hollow. As he stares at his own hand, the urgency of his situation finally sinks in. He realizes he can't rely on tricks forever, and if he doesn't recover his true strength immediately, the next assassin won't be as easy to crush as a frail old doctor. With a final spit of contempt, he steps over the wreckage to focus on the bigger picture. By mentally marking Gongsun Myung for investigation, he proves that he isn't just cleaning up a single mess, he is preparing to hunt down the entire network of traitors and burn it to the ground. But the silence that follows reveals a brutal truth. As the traitor lies broken face down on the table, the master stumbles back in sheer exhaustion, proving that while his instincts are lethal, this pathetic body is so fragile that winning a single exchange nearly knocked him out too. But the victory comes with a crippling cost. As he clutches his head in sudden agony, the jagged aura of pain surrounding him confirms that his fragile body is violently revolting against the exertion, proving that forcing this weak vessel to fight like a master is tearing him apart from the inside. In this intense close-up, the agony sharpens into cold analysis. As he endures the backlash, the piercing blue light in his eye reveals that he understands the deadly reality. His spirit is a dragon trying to move within a vessel made of glass, and every display of strength brings him one step closer to shattering completely. In this chilling close-up, the retainer's mask of bumbling loyalty completely slips away. His deadpan, unreadable expression replaces the hysterical tears from before, confirming the master's suspicion that this old man isn't a fool. He is a sharp, calculating observer who has likely been watching the entire assassination attempt unfold from the shadows. In this chilling wide shot, the physician's denial echoes weakly in the empty room. As he backs away from the master with his head bowed, the stark distance between them visually emphasizes the enormous power gap, confirming that his feeble protest is nothing more than the last gasp of a man who knows he is already lost. In this eerie flashback, the darkness peels back to reveal a chilling memory. The master watches two terrified children huddling in the void, and his startled question, "Are these?" confirms that he has just stumbled upon a suppressed trauma from his new body's past that might explain exactly why this useless young master was targeted for assassination in the first place. In this sudden mental flood, the shattered pieces of the past finally align. As the fragments of Lee Jin-Ian's memory crash into his mind, the master realizes he isn't just inheriting a weak body, he is inheriting a lifetime of betrayal that explains exactly how this promising young noble was systematically destroyed. Then, a blinding fracture tears through the void. As the shards of darkness shatter around a central pillar of light, this abstract imagery visualizes the violent integration of the original owner's soul, confirming that the floodgates of memory have been forced open, granting him full access to the tragic history he needs to survive. The emotional weight finally crashes down. As a single tear trails down his cheek, it confirms that the master isn't just absorbing dry facts, he is feeling the crushing sorrow of the original soul's tragic life. A burden of grief, so heavy it forces even his hardened warrior spirit to weep for a stranger he never met. In this moment of quiet clarity, the chaotic storm of memories finally settles into a single realization. As the water ripples, he understands that the overwhelming grief he felt wasn't his own, it was the lingering sorrow of the soul he replaced, confirming that he hasn't just inherited a body, but a tragic legacy that demands justice. In this grand reveal, the palace stands bathed in a cold, ethereal light as the narrator unveils the tragic backstory. The sprawling estate of the Yuna merchant group isn't just a home, it's a gilded cage where the first son, Lee Jin-Ian, was trapped by wealth and expectation, setting the stage for a story of betrayal hidden beneath layers of opulence. Here, we see the cruel reality of his upbringing through a stark visual contrast. While his gifted brothers stand proudly in the foreground representing intellect and strength, Lee Jin-Ian is cast as a lonely silhouette in the back, confirming that despite being the firstborn, he was completely overshadowed and deemed a failure by his own family. In this poignant close-up, the weight of his failure is etched into his features. His hollow, vacant stare reflects a lifetime of being labeled a disappointment, confirming that the real tragedy wasn't just his lack of talent, but the crushing loneliness of being the lacking eldest son, who was never truly seen by those who were supposed to love him. And so, the downward spiral began. We see him chugging alcohol, surrounded by faceless sycophants who cheer him on, visually confirming that his depraved life of pleasure wasn't about enjoyment, it was a desperate, pathetic attempt to buy the validation he couldn't earn, leaving him drowning in excess while his soul slowly withered away. In this somber close-up, the weight of regret is palpable as his downcast gaze reveals a tragedy of timing, and the sweat on his brow confirms that his awakening came at a terrible cost. Realizing too late that the damage he inflicted on himself during those wasted years had become irreversible. In this haunting shot, the finality of his failure is cast in shadow. As he stands alone in the darkness, the text delivers the crushing verdict that his epiphany came too late, confirming that years of neglect have already destroyed his foundation, leaving him trapped in a broken body that no amount of regret can fix. In this bleak overhead shot, the full extent of his exile becomes clear. As he sits huddled alone on the porch of this remote villa, the realization hits that his family didn't send him here to recover, they sent him here to be forgotten, effectively discarding their useless son, where his death wouldn't be an inconvenience. With a cold, analytical gaze, he finally starts piecing the puzzle together. His sharp expression confirms that while the lack of memories was a handicap, it wasn't the real threat, it was just the first layer of a much darker conspiracy designed to keep him in the dark until it was too late. The scene closes on a quiet, determined note. As the leaves rustle in the night breeze, the master stands alone at the window, gazing into the darkness with a renewed sense of purpose. Finally free from the ghosts of the past and ready to dedicate his second life to the only thing that truly matters, becoming the strongest martial artist the world has ever seen. Even through the throbbing headache, a realization strikes him. As he rubs his temple in frustration, he understands that this broken vessel was actually a masterpiece of potential, and his annoyed scowl confirms his disgust at how the previous owner managed to squander such an innately gifted body. The motion freezes instantly as a sudden realization hits him mid-gesture. That sharp pause and the text, "Wait a second," signal that his casual touch uncovered a vital anomaly, proving that this wasted body might actually hold a secret potential that even he almost missed. In this dramatic reveal, the solution literally glows in the dark. As the master stares down at a glittering pile of gold coins and a massive nugget, the divine spotlight confirms that his shortcomings weren't a curse, but a setup for his greatest advantage, the limitless wealth that will now finance his unstoppable rise to power. In this moment of realization, the master understands his greatest weapon isn't his fists, but his wallet. That thumbs up confirms the previous owner's only talent was being rich, and the hero decides to use that infinite wealth to literally buy his way back to strength, proving that in this world, money really can solve everything. In this moment of dark comedy, the adrenaline fades to reveal a simple logistical problem. As he stares at the corpse ruining his dinner, his casual decision to just bury him proves that he treats this failed assassination not as a tragedy, but merely as a messy spill that needs to be mopped up. The grim atmosphere vanishes, replaced by a breathtaking mountain sunrise where cherry blossoms dance in the light. This serene transition acts as a palate cleanser, washing away the bloodshed of the night to signal that the immediate threat is buried, and a new day of focused cultivation has finally dawned. The dark, claustrophobic atmosphere is instantly swept away by a bright, serene landscape. As cherry blossoms drift in the morning breeze, this peaceful transition signals that the bloody business of the night is buried, clearing the stage for a new day dedicated solely to his recovery. In this peaceful establishing shot, a lone servant sweeps the courtyard as the morning light filters in, visually confirming that the estate has returned to its quiet routine, completely unaware that a deadly assassination attempt was just silenced within its walls only hours ago. In this peaceful transition, the story takes a massive leap forward as the seasons change. The 1 year later caption amidst the falling cherry blossoms signals the end of his recovery phase, confirming that 12 months of grueling training and expensive medicine have finally transformed the frail invalid into a warrior ready to face the world. And the first step says it all. We see a close-up of his boot planting firmly on the ground with zero hesitation, a stark contrast to the trembling legs of the past, confirming that after a year of hellish training, he has finally rebuilt his foundation and is ready to walk the path of a conqueror once again. His return to the world begins with a simple greeting. As he steps out into the courtyard and casually addresses the servants, their startled expressions confirm that they barely recognize the confident man standing before them, proving that the sickly invalid who vanished a year ago has been completely replaced by a revitalized master. Just as the master steps back into the light, the outside world comes knocking in the form of a confident messenger. With a letter for Lee Jin-eun and a knowing smile, his arrival signals that the year of peaceful isolation is officially over, and the family that discarded him is finally reaching out to drag him back into the chaos. The maid cheerfully directs him with a smile, but the messenger's skeptical glare reveals he is expecting to find a bedridden invalid, completely unaware that the man waiting at the end of that finger is no longer a victim, but a warrior who has spent the last year forging himself into a weapon. In this sharp close-up, skepticism turns into sheer terror. His pupil shrinks to a pinprick as sweat beads on his cheek, confirming that he just locked eyes with something that shattered his expectations, proving that the fragile young master he came to find has been replaced by a force of nature that he is utterly unprepared to face. The messenger freezes in disbelief as he peers into the room, his stuttering reaction confirming that the rumors of a sickly invalid were dead wrong. Instead of a dying man, he finds a powerful figure meditating with a muscular physique, proving that the young master has secretly transformed into a force to be reckoned with. In this revealing close-up, the transformation is undeniable. As he glances back with sweat dripping down his sculpted physique, the steam rising from his body confirms that the fragile invalid is dead, replaced by a hardened warrior who is finally physically ready to face the family that abandoned him.